Window treatments. I have a confession to make. Our entire house really needs window treatments, and we've lived here about 7 years now, and I just haven't known what to do with any of the windows. And so where we really need them, we have these light blocking shades just on tension rods. And I have made some curtains for the kitchen, and that's as far as I've ever gotten. I feel really confused by what to do. It's too expensive to hire it done. I've looked into that, and it's just, we've got too many windows and they're too big. And even if they weren't too big, it's just really expensive. So I have set myself the challenge this year. I really want it to be the year of the curtain. And I've been doing obsessive research for years, and I've decided that this room that I'm in here, I'm going to do some Swedish blinds. So here I am measuring, and when you do measure, I have discovered that it's important to measure several spots on the window, because your windows might not be exactly the same width across all the way up and down the length of the window. Believe it or not, there might be slight variations. So yes, definitely measure. But let's talk about window treatments for a minute. Fabric. I have this decorator's fabric I bought a couple years ago at Walmart. I've been planning to make these curtains for a couple years. I don't know if that's ever happened to any of you. It seems to be a pretty universal phenomenon. If I talk to my friends around here, they'll all kind of admit that they have stashes of fabric for sewing projects that never quite got around to. Sewing does take longer than I think. Always takes longer than I expect. I'm not an expert sewer by any means, and so that slows me down too. But I'm going to use this fabric, and then in my researching over the years, I've read a lot about interlining your fabric with a thermal, I don't know what they called. One of my commenters last week was calling it Polar Tech, something like a Polar Tech fabric, something like that would help with climate control in the summer and in the winter. So I'm really interested in finding fabric like that as well. Have to figure out how to sandwich that in between the two layers that I have here. These are going to be my first project. They're in the guest room, so it's not in the front room. But what I'm really interested in are getting some curtains in my front room. I've been so hesitant because I want to get this right. We have these lovely, amazing paneled sides to these windows in here. I've never seen anything like it. I just love them, and I want to do them proud. And one of the most important things to consider for me is the window is so beautiful, it doesn't really need any covering. The reason I want a covering is for temperature and sun and privacy. So I want something that just sort of fits into the window and doesn't detract from the beautiful panel molding on the sides of the windows. There's 4 windows in here, and they are no standard size. They're way wider and taller than anything that I could go out and buy ready-made. But I have discovered from just reading way too many books is that what I really would like to do are I've got about 3 ideas: relaxed Roman shades, London shades, or Swedish blinds. Although I'm pretty much eliminated Swedish blinds because I think that they're a little too simple for the feel of this room, and I'm going to save them for other rooms. I think they're my favorite window treatment, but I'm going to save those for other rooms. So my challenge in here is to figure out how to make some beautiful relaxed Roman shades or London shades. I will explain what those are in a minute. I had no idea until I started obsessively researching, but I think it's interesting. If you're looking for, so full disclosure, I'm not a huge fan of curtains. I'd much rather do a blind. Curtains often feel like too much fabric and like they're covering up too much of the window, and then I have found in my life they stay drawn too much. It's too easy to not mess with them and not move them. So I'd much rather have a simple blind and look at some of this beautiful architecture instead of having yards and yards of fabric covering up these windows, even though I think that could also be a very beautiful look. It's just not my preference. So let me show you what I was thinking, and hopefully if you're interested in the idea of Roman shades or London shades or Swedish blinds. This will give you some ideas about what those are. And I really do think that they're not that difficult to make now. I haven't made them yet, but I'm looking forward to sharing that process with you on the channel. And yeah, like I said, I don't think they're that difficult to make. So here's a picture of my room. This is what a London shade is, essentially. It has sort of it's a fabric thing, it sort of looks like a valance, really. But it would have, and it would move up and down on a strings. It'd be strung up just like a blind or a Roman shade or something. So you'd pull it up and down. So that's what it would look like, when it was pulled up at the top. And then I'm trying to color in here. This is what it would look like when it was down. Now, of course, another challenge for this room is I'd really like to get, just the perfect fabric. And that's a challenge for a couple reasons. One of which is that I really want to change the wall color, but not the trim color. And I don't necessarily want to change the walls this year. And I know that ideally, it would be ideal to paint first and then put up some curtains, but there's so many other projects clamoring for my attention. I don't know. Anyway, I know it would be best to paint first, and I've got some thoughts about that too, which I'll share with you at the end of the video. But for now, let's just think about the curtains. I guess I have it in my mind that running up some curtains, or blinds rather, is relatively simple, and we do really, really need them. It's sort of urgent. And I don't know about any of you in your homes. Sometimes the urgent things just, the order of operations that you should do just gets out of whack by what feels urgent. Okay. So here, that was the London shade. And then I've also thought of putting a simple roller shade inside of the window, and then maybe doing a swag over the top here. Now, I'm drawing it right on the wood. I'm not sure what I was thinking when I was doing this. I think I would rather have this up higher above the wooden window frame. There we go. I started drawing it too low, and then I remembered, just like now as I'm narrating. So I could do a swag that, I think these are called pelmets. I just learned recently, and sometimes people put them after the window ends and up into the ceiling, and it makes your window look even taller. So I thought I could do a swag there, and then have a relaxed Roman shade on the inside of the window, or even a roller blind, a Swedish blind, a fabric roller blind, and that would be a much more formal look. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Sometimes I like the idea of a swag. Here's an example of a swag in a historic house that I got to tour that had some really interesting window treatments. So that is a swag, and this would be very historically appropriate to the home. And it's really pretty. My only problem is that it covers up some of the window and it doesn't move. So part of the window is always covered up. So I don't know. I would put mine a little higher than the one in this picture, perhaps, or maybe it's just not for me. These are London shades. So they move up and down on a string. They do actually move. Now, those blinds behind them are Venetian blinds. They're made of wood. And this would have been, no pun intended, what they had back in the early 1800s, I believe. I think what they told me was that there was an actual Venetian blinds manufacturer, and these well-to-do people would have gone to them and had these beautiful wooden blinds made, and then somebody would have made these London shades that went over top and moved up and down, and that would have been their curtains. And then also the fabric I find so interesting. It looks like a French block print, doesn't it? Like an Indian fabric. So ever since I saw this, I've been really interested in looking for a print fabric for the Roman shades in my living room, which is something I hadn't actually considered at all before. But seeing that a house from sort of the same time period as mine would have had something like this. I find that really interesting. Now, the Venetian blinds are a non-starter because they are so expensive. They're very cost prohibitive, but they are lovely if maybe, maybe someday. But for now, curtains will just have to do. And so I am looking very much for a fabric like this, and I do like the London shade look. Then there were these. Now, I've never seen anything like this anywhere. Look at this. They pull up on a string again, but they pull up on the diagonal. And this is also historically correct to the home. Now, I'm not as big of a fan of the paisley print, but just the fact that it's a print at all, and then that I think it's really cool how it pulls up on the diagonal. Now, I do not know. I'd probably have to improvise myself how to make these, because in all of my books and things I've ever looked at, I've never found any kind of directions about how to make this particular kind of shade. But apparently this is what they would have had, at least in this particular house. I think that is so interesting. Now, I don't have a picture of a relaxed Roman shade to share with you other than my own drawing, but these are the options I'm thinking of, and I don't even know what to call this one. And here's my room again. So you could see I would love to find a print that fit in with a lot of the other prints in here. And then, of course, I'm planning to recover the sofa and a chair. So maybe if I picked out all of those fabrics at the same time and blended them with what's already here, that might work. On my Canva fabric swatch mood board thing, I think that when you get really serious about it, though, it's good to have real live fabric swatches. So I might need to start getting real swatches of things and pinning them up. And I will definitely show you pictures as well. I realize there's a lot of pattern going on in here, but that is how I like it. Here are some patterns I've been looking at, or prints. This is spoonflower.com. It's a wonderful site. There's so many indie designers on here, and there's really interesting prints. P. Coquette is one of my favorites. I really love all of her designs. So it's kind of overwhelming. There's so many. So I've just been taking a peek on here sort of in my spare time on my phone. But I haven't, it's going to take a lot of work to find a pattern that would work with a bunch of other patterns and look good instead of just looking crazy. So I'm starting to realize how challenging this is, and also how interesting. So I'm really actually excited for this challenge. And I am looking forward to taking you along with me on the journey of mixing patterns. And finally, I'm still thinking about my entrance hall. I've shown you some mock-ups of this before, and I have a few more colors to share for your consideration. This is Fair and Ball's Entrance Hall Pink, so a better color for an entrance hall, right? It looks a little dull and brown here, although like any paint, I've seen pictures of it where it looks absolutely gorgeous and it's glowing. So I guess my next step is going to have to be to order samples, because it's just so flat digitally. It's really hard to tell. But anyway, Entrance Hall Pink, and I can't remember what the corresponding white is. Dimity White, I think. And then here's another one, Fair and Ball's Ointment Pink. It's a little more intense, darker. And then finally, this is Fair and Ball's Pink Ground, which is light. And it's supposed to look like plaster after you've applied it and it's drying. I guess it has a pinky hue. I really like this color a lot. I keep thinking of using the same color in the hall as in the living room, though that might be a little bit too much because the hall is a lot of wall. But I really like this pink ground color. I like the other ones as well, and I think it's just down to, it's very hard to see what they're going to look like without actually getting a paint sample and putting it up on the wall. So I will probably have to try that reluctantly spend a little bit of money on that. But let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to know your opinions about these pink colors. And I hope that this was an interesting little tour of Roman shades, relaxed Roman shades, London shades, Swedish blinds, and I would love to get your input. Would you ever consider putting a print up as a curtain or a shade, or would you go with a neutral fabric or a solid fabric? Have you sewn your own? Do you have window treatments that you absolutely love? Or if you don't, what is stopping you from getting them or making them? Is it because it seems intimidating or hard, or just because you don't have the time, or is it the expense? So I'm look forward to having an interiors chat in the comments, and I will see you next week. Until then, take care. Bye for now.